Winter, 1941. The German armies that had confidently marched toward Moscow just months earlier were now bogged down in snow and fire. Soviet T-34s and KV tanks turned out to be nothing like the enemy the Wehrmacht had expected. Their armor withstood hits that German guns simply couldn't penetrate. The tanks that were meant to dominate the battlefield had suddenly become vulnerable. On a staff officer's desk lies a report: "Our shells are bouncing off. We've lost 30 vehicles in a single day. The enemy is stronger than we thought." This report would become the starting point for the creation of one of the most famous tanks in world history. The tank that would enter legend as the Tiger I. But the Tiger was not born from victory. It was born from frustration, panic, and the desperate desire for revenge. In Berlin at the Heereswaffenamt, the Army Ordnance Office, an emergency meeting begins. At the head stands General Heinz Guderian, the father of Blitzkrieg, who insists, "We can no longer ignore reality. We need a tank capable of crushing the T-34 and the KV. A tank with armor that cannot be penetrated." In 1941, the German military leadership announced an urgent tender. Two firms, Henschel and Porsche, were tasked with creating a heavy tank with a powerful gun and armor that no existing shell could pierce. Work at the factories was in full swing. Engineers argued over layout, transmission, weight. The technical requirements were nearly utopian. 100 mm frontal armor. A gun capable of piercing 100 mm of steel at 1,000 meters. Weight up to 45 tons. All of this in 1941 seemed fantastical. But Germany had resources, ambition, and a fear of defeat. It was that fear that became the fuel for the birth of the Tiger. When prototypes were ready, the military conducted comparative trials. Both impressed with their power, but the Henschel machine proved more practical, reliable, and easier to produce. The choice was made. This tank would receive the name that would inspire dread in anyone who heard its engine. The Tiger I was not just a tank. It was a symbol that Germany would no longer allow itself to be humiliated on the battlefield. In the drawing room, stacks of plans, sketches, and formulas. Engineers report on weight, armor, and gun power. This is not about heroic words. It's about numbers. Millimeters of steel, meters of suspension travel, horsepower. The Tiger I was born as an answer to a concrete problem: how to combine very heavy armor and a powerful gun in one vehicle and still keep it battle-worthy. Two projects competed for the contract: Porsche with its radical and expensive scheme based on a petrol-electric drive, and Henschel with a more traditional but militarily pragmatic solution. Porsche proposed a complex system where diesel or gasoline engines would drive generators that powered electric motors on the tracks, an innovative idea, but dangerous for mass production. Henschel bet on proven units: a classic transmission, a powerful Maybach engine, and the pragmatic determination of engineers who could retool factories to meet new demands. What made the Tiger special from a technical point of view? First, the armor. Frontal plates of the hull and turret reached up to 100 mm at various slopes, a value that in 1942 to 43 made frontal projections practically impenetrable to most Soviet and Allied guns at medium ranges. Second, the gun. The 8.8 cm KWK 36L/56, a modification of the famous 88 mm anti-aircraft gun. This gun combined range and incredible penetration. At 1000 m it could pierce armor that had previously seemed unreachable. The design forced engineers to find non-standard solutions: a compact but very heavy transmission, massive drive sprockets, and a complex interleaved road wheel suspension that spread the weight and provided mobility. Thus the Tiger was heavy, a brutal mass, over 50 tons in production variants, that demanded a powerful engine. The Maybach HL-230 was chosen, but even it worked near the limits of its capabilities. That produced weak spots. The complexity of components, final drives, gearboxes, and massive tracks made maintenance labor-intensive. High weight increased stress on the suspension and roads, and in soft ground a tank could get stuck, and recovering it was not an easy task. Fuel consumption became a huge logistical problem. To deliver a Tiger to the front and keep it running required tons of fuel and spare parts. Another feature was resource intensity. Producing a Tiger required large amounts of steel, high-precision parts, and skilled workers. On Henschel's line, each tank cost significantly more than the average tank of the time, and production capacity was limited. Instead of hundreds of thousands of light vehicles, Germany could only produce a limited number of heavy Tigers, about 1,300 units during the whole war. Yet despite all the technical compromises, the result justified itself. The Tiger combined armor and firepower capable of solving local tasks, destroying enemy tanks at long ranges, holding strategic positions, and exerting psychological pressure on the opponent. The complexity of its engineering produced greatness and problems. The Tiger became an example of a concept: build a unit that dominates in battle, regardless of the logistical and production costs. Beginning its fight, the Tiger did not simply push forward, it changed the rules of engagement. On the battlefield, its role was twofold: a long-range hunter of tanks and a mobile fortress that could hold a key position even against a numerically superior enemy. Commanders placed Tigers in narrow sectors, on elevations, or in rear ambushes, places where their frontal armor and long 88mm gun had maximum effect. The Tiger's first operational baptism began in 1942, and already opponents noticed one crucial fact: the battle line had been pushed back. The long-range gun allowed targets to be destroyed while still approaching, when the enemy could not respond with its main armament at an effective range. On steep approaches and the plains of the Eastern Front, this provided a tactical advantage, sometimes a decisive one. The effect of psychological domination was no less tangible. When rumors spread of a Tiger's presence, morale dropped. Infantry were less willing to move under fire, commanders altered plans, and tanks tried to follow hidden routes. Many after-action notes from Allied and Soviet units report that the first shot of the 88 often stopped an attack before it began. However, in practice, the Tiger was not immortal. Its strengths worked only with proper tactics and logistical support. When a Tiger found itself in confined space, surrounded, or in swampy terrain, its weight and complex transmission became a burden. Where tanks could maneuver freely and maintain distance, it controlled the field. Where maneuver was impossible, it became a huge target. Vulnerability to mines and close-range fire was real. Powerful anti-tank weapons, minefields, and artillery could neutralize a Tiger, especially if they disabled its running gear or struck the turret roof. Air power posed another threat. Southwestern operations showed that without air cover, a heavy vehicle risked becoming easy prey for aerial strikes. Technical problems were another chapter. The powerful engine and heavy drivetrain required frequent maintenance. Final drives and gearboxes were vulnerable to overload. On narrow roads or during deep raids into the rear, mechanical failures became more frequent, and then even the best armor would not save it. Some battalions had special tractors and recovery crews. Pulling out a stuck Tiger was a complex, resource-intensive operation. Crew life in a Tiger was a mix of pride and discomfort. The interior was cramped, heat during movement significant, and noise and vibration constant companions. Yet the privilege of commanding such a machine added status. Tiger crews enjoyed high social prestige in the Wehrmacht, and numerous successful engagements turned individual tanks into legendary icons, with names painted on them and the crew's personal stories. The most famous episodes of the Tiger's combat glory include clashes on the Kursk salient, actions in North Africa, and select brilliant raids in Western Europe. Names like M. Whitman in France are etched in history. Using prepared positions and surprise, they demonstrated how the combination of equipment, skill, and tactics could yield incredible results. In the end, the Tiger was more than a weapon. It concentrated advantages and limitations at once. In the hands of an experienced commander and with proper support, it was a true butcher of enemy armor. Without logistics and tactical wisdom, it was simply a large metal trap on the battlefield.